I'm catching up on some films I've missed over the last few weeks, starting with the third entry in Ti West's X trilogy, Maxxxine. It's time to get naughty. Maxxxine is still in theaters now from A24. It's written and directed by Ti West. In the third and possibly final film in Ti West's X saga, we catch up with Maxine Miller, aka Mia Goth, in 1985 Hollywood. Maxine now goes by the name of Maxine Minx and is currently a porn star and stripper with high hopes to break into mainstream acting. But just when she gets her break and is cast in a horror movie by up-and-coming director Elizabeth Bender, played by Elizabeth Debicki, she finds herself stalked by a sleazy detective named John Labatt, played by Kevin Bacon, who seems to know about her dark past. Meanwhile, a series of murders are committed by a person in black, brutally murdering sex workers, all of them happening to be within Maxine's orbit. With a pair of cops, played by Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Monaghan, Labatt and the mysterious black-gloved killer zeroing in on Maxine, how is it possible that she'll ever be able to find the time to become the star she dreams of becoming? It's tough saying goodbye, if indeed that's what Maxine is for the X series. I'm sure there's room for more, but I doubt either Mia Goth or Ti West are going to push their luck. Anytime a series comes to an end and the plot has to be wrapped up, sometimes it just isn't as satisfying as the road there. I didn't hate Maxine. In fact, I liked it quite a bit, but I do feel it's the weakest of the trilogy in terms of story. And it's all because in order to wrap up a story, sometimes you have to go back to where you began, and because of that, I felt Maxine was rather predictable in the story department. The movie hinges on a masked killer whose identity isn't revealed until the climax, but because there really wasn't anyone left in Maxine's wake throughout X and now Maxxine, the identity of the killer was pretty evident from the get-go. It makes me wonder if I would have felt this wave of disappointment had Ti West simply let the cat out of the bag from the beginning and not hinged the plot so heavily on the identity of the masked killer. Would the story have been more satisfying? I think it might have been, and therefore I think this plot point is Maxine's biggest flaw, making it pale in comparison to X, which relied on the plot twists in the middle, and Pearl, which simply riveted you to your chair because of Mia Goth's amazing performance. All of that said, I had a good time with Maxxine. If anything, it shows that Ti West is the real deal in terms of filmmaking. The range he exhibited over these three films, making a meta-slasher, a period piece, Descent into Madness, and now a neo-noir retro mystery thriller, makes me believe this guy can really do anything if he puts his mind to it. Having followed West's work since the beginning of the exceptionally scary House of the Devil, West has evolved into a big-time filmmaker, while others of his ilk have accepted big-budget flicks like Godzilla movies and such, and failed to make this transition. West seemed to do it at his own pace and in its own way. Simply seeing West emulate such films as Hardcore, Cruising, and other seedy, sultry sleaze fests from the 70s that make you want to take a shower after watching is impressive as all get out. On top of that, he tosses in a black-gloved killer and elaborate death scenes ripped straight from the great Italian giallis of old. West even seems to film this movie on aged and weathered film stock to make it feel like a movie one might have found in the horror section at the local video store you used to frequent way back when. Add on top of that homages to films like Beyond the Green Door, Avenging Angel, and other sexploitative horror films of the 70s and 80s, and you understand that West has done his homework, understands it, and is able to convey that look and feel on the screen with ease most directors only dream of. Hell, he even pays homage to Psycho in a way that isn't hammy or hacky. There are numerous scenes early on that took my breath away, but one in particular that takes place in a video store sealed the deal that West is a filmmaker I will follow to the grave and beyond. It's choppily edited between Maxine reading her script and someone being murdered elsewhere. It's done so good that I wanted to rewind it and watch it over and over again to see how it was put together. And believe me, once I get the Blu-ray, I'll be doing so. Other scenes soak in the seedy underbelly of Hollywood so well that you can almost smell the tipped over trash cans. Moving on to the acting, Mia Goth is going to be the reason most of you are going to be seeing Maxxxine, and while I feel the character she plays is a bit less dimensional as her performances were in X and especially Pearl, she still maintains the spunky, crass, and downright ballsy attitude she had at the end of X. She's given a moment to flex her acting muscles in an audition early on, and delivers a fascinating audition, giving the audience a peek at the trauma she hides behind a ton of hairspray and a lot of makeup. Still, this distanced, tough gal performance is part of Maxxine's character. Full-snouted with coke, Goth plays someone who would do anything not to be alone with her thoughts. This is evidenced by another phenomenal character-centric scene where Maxxxine has to have her head cast in plaster and has nowhere to go and nothing to snort to hide from her past traumas. The rest of the cast is solid, but with the bigger budget comes familiar actors that sort of distracted me from the story itself. Kevin Bacon chews on the entire fake scenery of the Hollywood backlot as private detective John Labatt, who is hell-bent on exposing Maxxine's secrets. But this is not a character you'll ever see in real life. The recognizability of this character took me out of the story, as did Bacon's hammy performance. It's good and fun to watch Bacon revel in the sleaze, but it is an over-the-top role. The appearance of Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Maxxine's agent, is another instance where the actor is good in the role, but the whole time I was distracted by his wig. Appearances of less A-list actors like Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Monaghan as cops feel more at home in the lo-fi atmosphere filmmaker West conveys, but their banter often is forced and too on the nose at times. I guess what I'm saying is that I feel that since this movie emulated the low-budget Z-grade horror films of the late 70s and early 80s, it distracted me seeing these stars showing up in key roles. Still, that's a minor complaint as everyone played their part really well. It would have been interesting to see what some stars that were big in the 80s, like Eric Roberts or Don Johnson or Rebecca De Mornay, would have done with some of these roles. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised as both X and Pearl were excessively violent and gory, but the over-the-top gore in Maxxxine really did impress me. At this time in cinema, it's hard to do something new and different in gore that you haven't seen done a billion times before. But Maxxxine has some surprisingly unique murders and carnage, most of which feels like West put a lot of thought into it to look like nothing that's been seen on film before. On top of that, the soundtrack, which occasionally plays the hits, but more often than not, relies on more deeper cuts of bands like Frankie Goes to Hollywood and the like, is a soundtrack I definitely will be seeking out. I guess it's time to end this review, and I do want to press the point that I did like Maxxxine a whole hell of a lot, despite my small issues with it. While Mia Goth dazzled us in Pearl, with Maxxxine, it's Ti West's time to shine as a filmmaker. If it weren't in the same trilogy as X and Pearl, it would be great on its own. But because West is forced to not only wrap up those two films' stories, but also put together elements introduced in Maxxxine, it feels like an impossible task. Still, this is the most solid trilogy I've seen in, well, maybe ever in horror. I have no idea where West is going after this film, and if the lovely Mia Goth will follow, though I sure hope so, because more Goth is a good thing. But whatever West does next, I'm there, center of the theater, and ready for the director to dazzle me again. Please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel, and ring that bell for notifications. You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your